Hey there, cyclists. Welcome back to Ask The Pedalist. I'm Mukund, and today we are tackling one of the most misunderstood concepts in endurance training: fat adaptation and zone 2 riding. You've probably heard people saying things like, I'm training my body to burn fat instead of carbs, or zone 2 turns you into a fat burning machine. And while there's a kernel of truth there, the reality is way more nuanced, and honestly, way more interesting than most people realize. So let's start with what most riders get wrong. The biggest myth? That zone 2 training somehow flips a metabolic switch, transforming you from a carb burner into a fat burner. Like your body is running on gasoline, and through training, you convert it to diesel. But here's the thing, your body is always burning both fat and carbs. Always. Even right now, sitting still, you're burning a mix of both. The question isn't whether you're burning fat or carbs, it's what ratio you're burning them at, and how that ratio shifts with training and intensity. And here's what blows people's minds. Even elite endurance athletes who have done years of zone 2 training still burn predominantly carbs during threshold efforts and races. Fat adaptation doesn't mean you stop using carbs. It means you get better at using fat alongside carbs, sparing your limited glycogen stores for when you really need them. Alright, so what actually happens during zone 2 training? Let's break down the real metabolic adaptations. First, mitochondrial density increases. Your muscle cells build more mitochondria. These are the little powerhouses that produce ATP, your body's energy currency. More mitochondria means more capacity to use fat for fuel, because fat metabolism happens primarily in the mitochondria. Second, you upregulate fat oxidation enzymes. Your body produces more of the enzymes needed to break down fatty acids and shuttle them into these mitochondria. Think of it like building more doorways into a factory. You can process more raw materials. Third, and this is crucial, you improve your lactate clearance and utilization. At any given intensity, you produce less lactate, and you get better at using lactate as a fuel source itself. This means you can ride harder while staying aerobic, which is the real magic of zone 2 training. And fourth, you enhance capillary density around your muscle fibers. More blood vessels mean better oxygen delivery and better removal of metabolic byproducts. This supports all the other adaptations we just talked about. Now, let's talk about what happens to your fuel mix. An untrained person riding at a conversational pace might burn a 50-50 mix of fat and carbs. With consistent zone 2 training, that same person at the same intensity might shift to 60-40 or even 70-30 in favor of fat. But this is critical. As intensity increases, everyone shifts towards carbohydrate metabolism. At threshold, even the most well-adapted athlete is burning 85 to 90% carbohydrates. During a sprint or heart attack, nearly 100% carbs. When people say I am fat adapted, what they really mean is, at low intensities, I can access fat stores more efficiently, which spares my glycogen. This is valuable, but it doesn't mean they have transcended the need for carbohydrates during hard efforts. Here's a fun fact. Studies show that elite cyclists can oxidize about 1 to 1.2 grams of fat per minute during zone 2 efforts. Untrained individuals? Maybe 0.3 to 0.5 grams. That's a huge difference in fat burning capacity, but even that elite athlete is still burning carbs simultaneously. Okay, time for some tough love. There is a segment of the cycling world that's taken fat adaptation to an extreme, doing months of low-carb or ketogenic diets, avoiding carbs during training, trying to become metabolically flexible. The research is pretty clear here. While these approaches can increase fat oxidation rates, they often come at a cost. High-intensity performance tends to suffer. Your ability to produce power above threshold decreases. Recovery becomes more difficult. Why though? Because carbohydrates are more efficient fuel source at higher intensities. They produce more ATP per unit of oxygen consumed. When you're racing, chasing the breakaway, or climbing a steep pitch, you need carbs to perform optimally. Now, does that mean zone 2 training is useless? Absolutely not. The aerobic adaptations we talked about, mitochondrial density, capillary growth, enzyme production, these are the foundation of endurance performance. You need zone 2 training. You just don't need to avoid carbs to get the benefits. So what's the smart approach? How do you actually train for better fat utilization without sacrificing performance? First, do your zone 2 work. Aim for 70 to 80% of your training volume at genuine zone 2 intensity. That's a conversational pace where you can speak in full sentences. This builds all those metabolic adaptations we discussed. Second, fuel your hard days appropriately. When you're doing intervals, threshold work, or racing, consume carbohydrates before, during, and after. Don't compromise high-intensity training to chase fat adaptation. Third, consider doing some zone 2 rides fasted or with minimal carbs, maybe once or twice a week. This can amplify the fat oxidation stimulus, but keep these sessions moderate in duration, 60 to 90 minutes, and always fuel your hard sessions properly. And fourth, don't stress about becoming fat adapted in some binary sense. If you're doing consistent zone 2 training, eating a reasonable diet, and fueling your hard efforts, you're already getting the benefits. The bottom line is this. Zone 2 training creates profound metabolic adaptations that improve your endurance performance. You do get better at utilizing fat, but this doesn't mean you're switching fuel sources. You're optimizing how your body uses both fuels. The real magic isn't in avoiding carbs or achieving some mystical fat adapted state. It's in building a massive aerobic engine through consistent, patient zone 2 work, while still fueling your body appropriately for the demands of training and racing. So train smart, fuel smart, and remember, there's no shortcuts, only the work. I'll catch you in the next episode of Ask the Pedalist. Until then, keep pedaling.